Human presence, negligible. That phrase pulsed across the Galactic Council's war table, repeated by 3 separate analysts. The Leaker High Marshal leaned back, smirking with both mouths. Then it's done. The colonies fall, the silence remains, and Earth stays exactly where it belongs. Behind him, laughter echoed. Polite. Arrogant. They had glassed 2 worlds in the past 6 weeks. Broken 7 allied fleets. Not once had Earth moved. The assumption was simple. They were outnumbered, outgunned, out of time. And in the center of the room, a burning holodisplay showed a Terran colony in collapse. Fires, static, surrender signals. A final transmission looped. A human voice, hoarse, broken, but smiling. Just remember, this isn't Earth's fleet. This was a trading outpost. Then silence, followed by coordinates, on repeat. Over and over, coordinates, leading directly to Sector 9C. The Council laughed again until the Leaker Marshal squinted. That's our sector. Somewhere in deep space, 3 freighters vanished. Without comes. 5 minutes later, the Council's outer patrol pinged an object. Unidentified. Large. Fast. Very fast. Too fast. It dropped out of fold space with no arrival flare, no power surge, no signature. It simply appeared. Dead center in the system. The commander of the Vrax. Dominion, a dreadnought cruiser orbiting the warfront, opened a channel. No flag, no escort, no comms. He sneered, targeting now. The ship on screen didn't move, just floated. Then it turned. Slightly. Enough to look, enough to aim. Sir, we're being scanned, said the sensor officer. Counter-scan, barked the commander. We can't. It's blocking our systems without jamming. Impossible. Not for them. The ship's name pulsed into focus. No broadcast. Just a passive reading on every screen within 2. SYSTEMSTSV Retribution. The commander went pale. I thought that ship was decommissioned. Someone whispered it was never commissioned. Aboard the Retribution, Captain Arya Holt stood motionless at the VIEWPORT. She wore no medals. No armor. Just the black coat of Terran. Command, and a silence older than any treaty. The ship around her hummed not with electricity, but intention. 1 crew. 1 gunner. 1 ship. The galaxy's balance was about to shift, and they hadn't fired a shot. Ma'am, her comms officer said, they're scrambling fleets. Let them. No warning? She glanced back. Did they give the colonies one? On the Vrax Dominion, the Admiral barked for firing sequences. Nothing happened. The targeting system flashed red. Offline. Then a line appeared on every screen. Not a threat, just a message. If you can see this, you're already dead. Then static. Then light. The Retribution moved. Not fast. Effortlessly. And the moment it did, the Dominion shattered. No explosion. No flare. Just a blink and a hole where a cruiser used to be. In the council chamber, no one spoke. Just the sound of 1,000 envoys realizing the silence from Earth was not peace. It was waiting. They thought it was mercy. Arya's voice, flat. Her ship aligned with the next fleet. It wasn't. They thought Earth was done. They thought the colonies were alone. They thought a trading outpost was the warning. They were wrong. Because Earth's battleship had entered the fight, and the galaxy finally knew fear. Do we respond? The question hung in the air like toxic vapor. In the heart of the Galactic Council's crisis chamber, 12 species, each with their own definition of war, stared silently at the screens above them. The images were simple. Raw Vrax Dominion. Gone. No explosion. No debris. Just absence. The Leaker Marshal's claws trembled above the interface. I repeat, do we engage? No, came the quiet voice of Chancellor Rivak, the most senior among them. Then do we retreat? No. Then what, by the void, do we do? Rivak looked up slowly, eyes glassed with dread. We wait. Aboard the Retribution, Captain. Holt's hands rested calmly on the rails overlooking her command deck. All systems were green. No alerts. No escalation. Only progression. They weren't firing. They were demonstrating, one movement at a time, because if Earth had to explain this to the galaxy, they'd already lost status? She asked quietly. Multiple fleet movements, ma'am. Council ships are aligning at range. Defensive postures. Any broadcasts? No, ma'am. They're watching. They should. She stepped toward the main panel, a cold pulse lighting under her boots with each step. Bring up Protocol H. The console blinked. Protocol H, hostile memory. Integration authorization required. She placed her hand on the reader. The ship HUMMED. Confirmed. On a half-lit cruiser 30,000 kilometers away. Lieutenant Halleck of the Yazari Ascendant Order watched as the data flood began. One screen. Then 10. Then all. The Retribution wasn't just transmitting threats. It was uploading evidence. Visuals of the colony burnings. The blockade on Eno Prime. Mass graves found by Earth's deep-range scouts on what were claimed to be civilian-vacated zones. Audio. Logs. Screams. The truth curated, time-stamped, verified, crashing through encrypted channels into every council system. And above every video, one caption. This is why we came. Shut it down, screamed an Arvakian engineer, his antennae twitching violently. Shut it down now. It's not malware. The technician barked. It's not even coded. They're using passive broadcast ports. Then destroy the receivers. They are the receivers. They stared at each other because it wasn't tech. It was intent. The Retribution was teaching the galaxy something they forgot. Earth didn't start this war. They remembered it. In the council chamber, someone finally broke the silence. This is psychological warfare. No, Chancellor Rivak said flatly. This is a lecture. Inside the Retribution's core chamber, a faint chime echoed. ATHENA9. The battleship's embedded AI came online. Protocol H confirmed. Distribution complete. Casualty reports? Nonsense, Vrex. No resistance detected. Responses? 14. Requests for ceasefire talks. And no response initiated. Captain Holt didn't blink. Good. She turned toward the viewing platform. Because the Retribution wasn't made to answer. It was built to remind. Across the Cal 7 quadrant, 6 council ships fell back from defensive positions. 2 powered down completely. 1 even dropped weapons into space as a signal of disengagement. But the Retribution didn't change course. It didn't chase. Didn't claim territory. It passed through. And left silence behind it. Meanwhile, on a remote broadcast tower near the neutral colonies of Eurus 4, a group of exiled journalists and banned historians watched the data flood with shaking hands. One woman, gray-haired and broken-voiced, looked up from her screen. They kept everything. A man beside her whispered, "How long were they waiting?" She didn't answer. Instead, she uploaded the archive Earth had just released to every open planetary net. The caption read, "Earth's battleship didn't declare war, it just brought receipts." Back aboard the Retribution, a junior tactical officer hesitated before speaking. "Captain, what if they do surrender?" Captain Holt turned her head slightly. "And what do we do?" She studied him a moment, then said something he didn't expect. "Forgive them." He blinked. "Seriously?" She looked back to the stars. "We don't punish children for not knowing fire burns. We show them the flame, and then we leave the room." And across the galaxy, the fire spread, but not through bullets, through truth, Systems once loyal to the Council began questioning, asking, unraveling, because fear of Earth had been cultural past and whispers, cloaked in myth. But now it was visible. Trackable. Slow. And deliberate. An emergency broadcast from the leaker. High Marshal finally reached the ship, hailed 27 times. On the 28th attempt, the line opened. Terran vessel, the Marshal began, his voice carefully polished. You've made your point. Captain Holt answered calmly, I haven't spoken. Then what is this? She paused. This is what your war looked like when someone finally watched it. He swallowed. You want terms? I want a record. And then what? She paused again. Then we leave. And you remember what it felt like when Earth didn't. That channel cut. Athena blinked. Fleet scatter confirmed. Target systems disengaged. Standing by. Captain Holt looked ahead. Find us the next lie. Confirmed. The ship turned. Not in conquest. In CURATION. Because the war wasn't. For planets. It was for narrative. And Earth's battleship had finally entered the fight. Not to win. To remind them what losing feels like. Council fleets scatter across the outer rings, but fear lingers. The retribution doesn't follow. It moves methodically planet to planet, dropping nothing but evidence. Inside, Captain Holt initiates Earth's most controversial directive: no retaliation, just exposure. And as the galaxy watches in frozen horror, a deeper question begins to rise. Was this ship ever meant for war? Or something worse? 5 hours after the destruction of the Vrax Dominion, the war map looked like a graveyard. Not because of death, because of abandonment. 34 ships across 3 sectors had powered down and fled. 5 defected entirely. A dozen more simply stopped responding. Every one of them had received the same transmission. Not from Earth. From the retribution. And emotionless. File chain titled, Your Hands, Our Bones. Inside it, not accusations. Not warnings. Just raw footage. Human aid workers shot outside. Surrender zones. Children clutching Earth insignia patches beside burned-out shelters. Terran pilots in cryopods, deliberately spaced by fleeing enemy fleets. The galaxy hadn't just forgotten Earth. It had erased it, and the retribution was now dragging those ghosts back into the light. Captain Holt stood before Vault Chamber 2 on the lower decks of the battleship. The security doors opened with a hiss. Inside, dim lights lit dozens of sealed cryoboxes and archive pods. A technician stood beside her. Ma'am, are you sure you want to release this batch? I'm not releasing it, she said softly. I'm showing it. But this includes. I know what's in them. Back in the Council's fractured chamber, panic had devolved into absurdity. They've turned their ship into a documentary, spat the Arvakian delegate. They're sending logs faster than we can censor. Snapped. Another. Worlds are already sharing them. Their own people are questioning the war. They're flooding us with truth. And in that sentence, silence bloomed. Because the retribution wasn't attacking. It was turning the galaxy against its own version of history. Weapon with no missiles. A victory with no invasion. Aboard the retribution, the AI Athena initiated next phase deployment. Vaults opened across 4 decks. Holodrones lifted into orbit, scattering across 5 neutral planets. Civilian satellites intercepted them first. Then pirate relays. Then DeepNet archives. Captain Holt didn't move from the VIEWPORT. She watched as every light in every system began flickering with Earth's stories. None of them had been edited. Not one filtered. It wasn't propaganda. It was proof. Status? She asked. Athena answered in that same neutral hum. 71 planetary networks breached without resistance. Civilian populations engaging broadcasts voluntarily. Council nodes attempting containment failing. Lie density, collapsing. Holt nodded. Good. On a moon colony outside Calder's Rim, a school halted its lectures. Students gathered around a HOLO-wall dot, not because a teacher told them, because someone asked, "Did we really do that?" The screen showed a human medic shielding alien civilians. With his own body during the siege of Cress R. No one had told them that before. They were taught Earth burned everything it touched. But here, they saw grief, they saw effort, they saw humanity. Meanwhile, on the planet Juxon 4, the local militia. Governor received an ultimatum from his own people. "Pull your fleet back," said the protest leader, "or we'll lock the ports. You fed us lies." He spat on the message, but he didn't deny it, because the protests weren't screaming anymore. They were showing footage and silence. He realized was no longer safety. It was guilt. Back on the Retribution, Holt entered the private AI vault. A THEN Ace core pulsed inside a cluster of silent crystals, slowly blinking in deep blue. "Was it necessary?" she asked it. "Which part?" "All of it. You were briefed." "I'm asking." "Your opinion." "It's not an opinion," Athena said. "It's a statistical certainty. The galaxy does not learn through violence. It learns through embarrassment." Holt chuckled once. "A little dark, aren't you?" "I was born on a battlefield." A pause. "You gave me memories. Now I'm giving them back." In a forgotten chamber aboard the Council's high-orbit station, a former Terran ambassador sat in shadows. Her hair had gone silver. Her voice lost to old toxins, but when the screen lit up with the Retribution's footage, she smiled. "I told them," she whispered. "One day we'll send one ship. They'll never recover from the truth." The Council's panic reached its peak when the Retribution approached the burn line, a border of stations notorious for deterring Terran expansion centuries ago. No treaties applied there. And no witnesses ever returned. Until now. Retribution came to a full stop just beyond the minefields and then launched a single pod. Unarmed. Inside it, black boxes. Dozens of them, recovered from ships, long erased from the records. Earth hadn't just remembered. They had collected, preserved the pain in silence, and now they handed it back. The Chancellor stood before the emergency delegation, trembling. "They're not challenging our military." "No," the Drax envoy said. "They're challenging our narrative." And someone behind him muttered, "We're going to lose." Aboard the Retribution, Holt sat in silence. No speech. No command. Just her eyes on the void. "Ma'am," said her officer. "What now?" She responded without turning. "Now we stop." "Stop?" "Let them decide." "Decide what?" "If they want to write the next story, or keep rereading the lie." And for the first time in 4 centuries, no Council fleet moved forward. No Empire declared retaliation. No envoy shouted threats. They watched because the Terran battleship hadn't come to fight. It came to speak. And the galaxy finally understood. They were never afraid of Earth's power. They were afraid of Earth's memory. They called it a ship, but it it was the truth they buried, and it floated across their stars like a silent judgment. They could no longer outrun the burn line. Collapsed. Within 22 hours. No engagement. No resistance. Just surrender. 5 outposts transmitted their resignations to the Council before dawn. 7 more went offline. Completely. On Varnes 3, the planetary governor gave one last broadcast before sealing the system's jump gates. "We believed the lies because they were easier than admitting we started it. The Retribution showed us what we really fought, memory." Aboard the Retribution, Holt sat inside the captain's chamber, surrounded by 20 flickering displays, each showing a different system's response. Protests. Ceasefires. UMPR. PTED. Apologies, some staged, some real, She didn't speak. She just watched Dot, and when her XO entered, she asked a single question. Which one broke first? Caradex, ma'am, he said. Their entire fleet deactivated. Broadcasted Earth's message on civilian channels. And the Council? Still frozen. In the heart of the Council fortress on Klyros, High Admiral Talvek paced furiously. There. Dismantling us with words. The systems are eating themselves. And Earth isn't even talking back. They haven't responded to a single surrender request. Chancellor Revok leaned forward, quiet. That's the point. Talvik snapped. Then what do we do? Beg. No, Revok said softly. We acknowledge. Planet after planet began. Transmitting to Earth. Not calls for ceasefire, not threats. Just confessions. One by one, the files bloomed across the galactic net. We executed your diplomats. We harvested your II cores. We used your silence as proof of surrender. And each time no reply. No broadcast. Just the retribution silent. Above them. Not moving. Just present. Ma'am, Holt's XO said, this is system-wide now. Even black zones are opening records. Some are asking for judgment. She turned. There. Not asking for judgment. They're asking if we still see them. In a mining colony on Arvis X, a rebel leader stood on a metal crate, speaking into a makeshift terminal. His voice shook. They said Earth had no stomach for war. He looked up. They didn't say anything about truth. Hen's core blinked. Passive. Response protocol complete. 98% of galactic net engaged. Public trust in Council has dropped below stability line. Holt nodded. Is that fear? No, Athena replied. It's something worse. Clarity. At Council command, emergency discussions collapsed into argument. One delegate screamed. There. Not even here. It's one ship. And someone else whispered, that's all they needed. The next message came not from a government, but from a child. A simple transmission broadcast to the neutral nets. A Terran girl, perhaps 10, standing beside the burned remains of a supply dome on a forgotten colony world. She looked into the camera. She didn't cry. She just said, we don't want you to be afraid. We want you to know. Then the screen went black, and trillions of people had nothing left to say. In a secret meeting on Verus Prime, two former Council warlords argued in hushed voices. What if Earth isn't done? They didn't demand tribute. They didn't seize territory. What if this is just phase 1? They didn't build that ship to conquer. Then what? To be remembered. Captain Holt stared at the blank display. Dozens of surrender requests. Council messages begging for clarification. All unanswered. Her XO stood behind her. Permission to ask something dumb, ma'am? She didn't look back. Ask. If we're not going to accept surrender, what are we waiting for? She closed her eyes. Grief? Grief? When? Memory comes back fast. It doesn't land like guilt. She turned to face him, her voice quiet. It lands like grief. On the planet Kezer, a Council general stared at an old file marked erased/sealed. He opened it. Inside. Images of Earth soldiers helping rebuild his world after a solar storm. A century ago, feeding his people. Dying beside them. He wept, not from guilt, but because no one had ever told him, and he'd helped bury it. A THENA systems. Flashed again. Final phase available. Response authorization. Waiting on Captain's approval. Holt said nothing for a moment, then, no. The system paused. Repeat. You are declining final response directive? Yes. She looked up at the stars beyond the viewport. They already heard us. Council. Members begged for a meeting. Earth didn't reply. Council fleets offered. Reparations. Earth didn't reply. Council planets. Lowered banners. Still no reply, because the retribution Wasn't sent to make demands. It was sent to exist, and existence undeniable. Massive, precise was the real punishment. One final message came. An open stream. No encryption. From an old voice, recorded decades earlier. Terran Command's former grand strategist. If you're seeing this, we didn't strike back. We just returned with what you tried to forget. We don't hold grudges. We hold records. They thought Earth's silence meant absence, but now they knew. It was aim, and the moment Earth's battleship entered the fight, the galaxy finally knew fear, because this wasn't vengeance. It was the cost of being remembered. They held a vote. Systems. 3 empires. One question. Should we retaliate? The vote was unanimous. No. Because you don't strike back at a ghost that didn't touch you. You run from it. Or you learn. The retribution drifted. No weapons. Hot. No shields. Raised. No message. Sent. Just stillness. And for the first time, the galaxy began to realize something far more terrifying than war. Earth didn't want to conquer. They wanted to be done. On Tarsis, a former propaganda minister opened a vault never meant to see light again. Inside, original Terran surrender treaties never honored, never archived publicly. She stared at the ink. Then uploaded them to the planetary net. It wasn't a rebellion. It wasn't vengeance. It was release. Captain Holt sat alone in the darkened command. Bridge. Lights dim. Crew quiet. A T.N. Oz voice came like a whisper. All known sectors have responded. Every truth has been received. What now, Captain? She looked ahead. And for the first time in weeks, she smiled. Now? We leave. They didn't say goodbye. They didn't fire parting shots. The retribution rotated on slow axis thrusters, pointed back toward Sol. And began the long, deliberate journey home. Faster than light off. Beacon silent, presence gone, and still the galaxy couldn't stop watching. On neutral station CZ-44, a young technician uploaded Earth's full archive to the interstellar memory chain. He didn't encrypt it, didn't watermark it, just left one message at the top. We thought it was a war. It was a reminder. In the shattered council chamber, Chancellor Rivak walked into the ruins of the communication floor. No one stopped him. No cameras rolled. He stood alone, facing the broadcast podium. And said a single sentence. We were never afraid of their weapons. Then left, on Earth. The oceans were quiet. Cities slept. No alarms. No celebration. Just peace. Because they knew that retribution would return. And it wouldn't be coming back victorious. It would be coming back finished. They laughed at the idea of a single Terran ship returning to the stars. They laughed. Then it came. Then it stayed. Then it left. And no one laughed again. And